centennial side. And so we did make a special commitment to the parks. Thanks to Craig Obey and his dad and some other people, we got some support on the Hill, and thus began both the initiative, which is to provide additional funding every year over a 10-year period, and a commitment to that, but also the challenge to allow for public-private partnerships, for more private giving to be matched by the government, which was an innovative idea. Dirk Camthorne at that time, the Secretary of the Interior, was very involved with it. But frankly, it never would have happened without this organization, because you all provided us the data to be able to prove that many groups around the country were working very well. I think of the Yellowstone Foundation, but also some less known that frankly we were able to use as examples. So bless you for what you do for the parks every day. Those of you who work at it here in the association, thank you for representing them well. I do love the outdoors still, and I love the outdoors. It doesn't love me. In the last year, I have broken my collarbone in 6 places mountain biking. Right next to an aqua park. Luckily, the Rangers didn't have to save me. And I've dislocated my shoulder whitewater kayaking. Someone said, well, it sounds like, you really go at it. I said, no, I'm just a very bad outdoor athlete. But anyway, I'll talk more tomorrow night about some of the future that I see for the parks. And, in a tough budget environment, we're going to have to make some difficult decisions. And again, I think the public-private partnership is part of it. I know there's some limits to it. But I thank you, Tom, for your chairmanship and the crew here tonight, and all the good work folks are doing here. There's some great people here in the room, good friends. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. Thank you.
The Army base at Fort Monroe in Southern Virginia. This has been a military installation for about 188 years. Now, the citizens of Hampton Roads know how special Fort Monroe and the Old Point Comfort Peninsula are. This is where the very first slaves were traded for food in 1619 in our country. It became a pathway to freedom during the Civil War when 3 brave men sought asylum at its doors. Robert E. Lee and Edgar Allan Poe served at the fort. Harriet Tubman was a nurse at the hospital, and Chief Blackhawk and Jefferson Davis were imprisoned there. Now, the citizens who cared about Fort Monroe attended a public hearing. They were going to hear about the future plans for this special place. They were appalled at the plan that was revealed to them. It was intense development, 3-story office buildings, thousands of residential units to cover the peninsula. And that evening, this band of citizens sat down and decided to form a statewide organization to convince the rest of us that there should be a national park in Fort Monroe. This group was small, but they were and still are relentless. They talked to anybody, state, local, federal. They collected thousands of signatures on petitions. They worked with the media, giving great press coverage, letters to the editors, editorials. They attended every public hearing and every stakeholder hearing they could, and they brought hundreds of people with them. And when times got tough and the Virginia Assembly started to meddle in the future of Fort Monroe, they dug into their own pockets not once, not twice, but 4 times to hire a part-time lobbyist to shepherd Fort Monroe through the legislature. Last November, President Obama used the Antiquities Act to declare Fort Monroe a new national monument. We were able to get 324 of 565 acres protected in our new national monument. The president of the citizens group, Mark Monroe, was in the Oval Office when the president, surrounded by, no offense intended, but everyone surrounded by a lot of legislators. I was thrilled at the end when he looked right at Mark and said, I especially want to thank the private citizens who made today possible. But this group is not resting on their laurels. They still have big plans for Fort Monroe. It's a partnership park, and there's a lot of work to be done. We have the Starport, we have the North Beach, and they have their eyes set on getting a green corridor to connect the two. We are very lucky to have a good contingent of the citizens for Fort Monroe National Park here tonight. President Mark Monroe and his wife Karen, Billy Eisenheld, Alex Gould, Jane Yerke, Scott and Susan Butler, Phil and Jennifer Adderley, Joanne Berkeley, Monica Malone, Adrian Whitcomb. I'm really, really pleased to have in our midst Jerry Holland. Jerry Holland's great-great-grandmother was one of the slaves who escaped to Fort Monroe. And she is not only a member of the citizens group, as are the Adderleys, but she's the founder of the Contraband Society. And we're so happy you're here, and we're so happy you're here to see for a new park, their absolute refusal to hear the words no, and their relentless determination, NPCA is so honored to present the Marjorie Stoneman Medalist to the citizens of Fort Monroe National Park.
Thank you so much, Pam. We are just blown away when we heard we were going to be selected for this award. The name Marjorie Stoneman Douglas itself is just awesome to me. As a young high school student in Florida in the late 60s, when everything, the ethic of Florida then was almost anything but conservation. And then to look at the map and see that vast swath of green in southern Florida, comprising Everglades National Park and the Big Cypress National Preserve and so on. And to think what she had to go up against to build alliance that could make that initial park grow to the extent it has is awesome. And we are very humbled to win this award. Not only that, but also we know how many citizens work for the other 395 national park units, and the affection and the passion they put into that work. And all we can think about this is as a tribute to Fort Monroe and its great specialness. And we're deeply grateful to the National Parks Conservation Association. It was only after people like Joy Oakes, Pam, Alan Spears, Natalie Ramirez got fully engaged in this process that things started happening, and we're very grateful to this organization for what they accomplished, because there would be no Fort Monroe National Park without the NPCA. And I would be remiss if not to pick up on Pam's point about there's more work to be done. You all understood instinctively from the beginning what we felt is that Fort Monroe is freedom's fortress. It's a great repository of our nation's history, but it is also has the duality of being a great strategic natural landmark at Old Point Comfort on the Chesapeake Bay. And we were successful in preserving 224 acres of that natural splendor as well as the fort. And we have the opportunity to link the fortress and the 224 acres of natural lands into a unified whole that can be a great treasure for our urban area, Hampton Roads, and the nation. And we're working very hard as a process for the state lands continues in the coming months. The state will manage it as a partner, but we hope that the park can grow to unify its two areas and still allow the state the ability to make sufficient revenues to make the remainder of the state lands self-sustaining, and at the same time make it even more of a national treasure that it is. Thank you all very much. Adrian, did you want to? Adrian Whitcomb, one of our board members, has written a very short
some time, but I've read so many things about Fort Monroe, and of course I only bring out the ones I like best. This specifically refers to the fact that to be complete, the complete park that it can be, should be, you have to have it all connected. We don't need something private in the middle of it. There's no need for that. It's called a fortress standing by the sea. A fortress standing by the sea should not in time encumbered be by houses built that block the view that should belong to me and you. We wish to see the bay once seen, by soldiers looking across the green with eyes in search of enemy and not blocked by eternity. A place, a time to recreate cannot be done if weary's fate is someone's residence to be. Our aim must stand to keep it free, to open up the land, the view, and nothing less can ever do the justice that this place demands. Build nothing new on Monroe's lands. Thank you.
You know, as Tom mentioned earlier, advocacy, successful advocacy, really does take tenacity and persistence. The National Park Service would not have been created without that. In fact, the national parks wouldn't have been created without it. And in fact, in this past year, we can look to several very exciting projects and things that have happened because of individual and citizen persistence. And I'd like to mention just three of those. The very first, last night we honored the citizens group of the Fort Monroe. And I would say in Virginia, in Hampton, Virginia, they were very excited to get that award, but I'll tell you what, we were so pleased to be able to give them that award. They did such a tremendous job for the nation. All of us are going to be beneficiaries of that. And they're over there on the left. I can't see with the blinding light. And say, please rise and do a few of the citizens here this night. We're sitting with Pam Goddard, who was instrumental from our staff, as well as Joy Oaks in leading that effort. So what a tremendous effort that is. And there was another amazing project that came to play, again, due to tenacity and a lot of work. And that is the removal of the Elwha Dam that just occurred this past fall.
Supreme Court right now, I think there is a consensus on one thing, and this is very important to remember, and that is that there is a distinct federal role with protecting and preserving the national parks. And this, I believe, is a bipartisan consensus. I want to tell a little story tonight, and I hadn't planned to do it until I was with some of you last night, and I learned about the Mather Mountain Party theme. And this is about some legislation that NPCA, which does so much, the National Parks and Conservation Foundation, this association does so much good work, but this is a relatively small bill that they're supporting that has I think, direct relevance to tonight's event because of the theme, and also because later we'll be celebrating Park Ranger Shelton Johnson, who does a terrific job in a very important park in California. It's a story about a guy named Charles Young. And Charles Young was an Ohioan. He was born into slavery in Kentucky, and he rose to become the third African-American graduate of West Point, the first African-American officer to command a regular Army regiment, and the highest-ranking black officer in the regular Army. He was also the first African-American National Park Superintendent. And as commander of an Army unit assigned to protect and develop Mather's Sequoia National Park and the General Grant National Park in California, it was Young who led the efforts to protect the parks, completed the first wagon road into Sequoia, and built lasting relations that last today with the local communities. So Colonel Young's story, as it relates to our national parks, I think is relevant to what we're doing tonight. It's also crucial to our modern-day park system. It was highlighted, as some of you may recall, in Ken Burns' wonderful PBS documentary. And I've introduced legislation, again, supported by this association, which authorizes the Secretary of the Interior to conduct a special study to determine the suitability and feasibility of designating Colonel Young's home in Xenia, Ohio, which is already a National Historic Landmark, as a unit of the National Park Service. So, how neat to make that connection. If you're in for a treat when you...
Okay. Our attention is focused on preserving this great place as we help us face history we never shall erase. From our memories, significance, and the world will face forever. the natives who once lived here, through the English, through the Maine, through the early years of nationhood and war that brought the fame. It was here the slaves found freedom and the life of the native claim. Forever Fort Monroe. A treasure here we are describing. There should be no subdividing. Keep this flag forever flying. Forever Fort Monroe. There's a section called the Prairie that is needed to complete this revelation by the public that is what we now to see. As we stand here all together, we shall not accept defeat. Forever Fort Monroe. A treasure we are describing. There should be no subdividing. Keep the flag forever flying. Forever Fort Monroe. From the catalogs and seaboard ships can now be viewed, and we walk along these beaches where our spirits are renewed. May we never stop these wonders as the future is pursued. Forever Fort Monroe. A treasure we once described.